Greetings from a cool and crisp Wisconsin morning.
Yeah, it is. It is also a beautiful, beautiful morning here in Overland Park, Kansas on this August 26th day. It's a Tuesday in the year. It's 2025. Welcome aboard, everybody. You listen to the Crushing Iron podcast. This is episode 872.
You got it, man. And don't mind me. I'm just over here shining my bike shoes and listening to Boys to Men. Getting in the mood, man.
Yeah, it is. Hey, listen, if it's not fall-like where you are, then just remember this moment, right? In February, March, early April, and you're out there in your shorts and your hoodie, enjoying the outside, trolling the rest of America because you live on the West Coast or in Texas or in Florida, how beautiful the weather is and how amazing it is to be outside and not stuck on the trainer. Oh, it's payback, baby. And we get the next month and a half head start to enjoy fall. But no, it's amazing. It's like, I know feel like there's a few times of year where there's like these huge attitude shifts with like, the overall population. I feel like this like 2-week span is one of them, because the kids go back to school and you're like, thank God, see you later. I love you, but you need your space. I need my space, and I need a routine. I need to be able to stay on track. I need some structure, and so do you. The kids are off to school. Structure is back. You got college football coming around the corner. You got, other sports. You got the U.S. Open. You got Ironman Wisconsin. People are trying to find their hoodies. You might even see like a leaf falling off a tree. I mean, and there's everybody and their brother is outside. Like, I went and ran last Saturday morning. I swear to God, I thought there was like a 5K that the Parks and Rec was putting on. I asked somebody. There were so many people out running. Saturday, Sunday, we started to get like our first like a little bit of cooler weather. And I was like, is there a race this morning? Like, I feel like I'm in the way. They're like, oh, no, it just seems like a busy morning. And I swear to God, I passed 100 people. And it's just, it's a great time to get out, and people are starting to feel themselves a little bit. People are more positive about their fitness. Now they get to see it. It's not 110 degrees. And I don't know that I've actually read, knock on wood, but I don't know that I've read a single comment so far this week about just how hot and miserable it is outside. That's also a plus. I love not reading that, because it just makes it feel hotter anyway.
Was that a humble brag? I passed 100 people.
No. I got like, it's like a out and back.
Oh, okay.
Like I got passed by I got passed like back and forth. Like same thing like this morning, like a quick, like a funny story, not funny, but we guys talk about people not saying hi, but I was out, Allie's in DC for work. And so I got up extra early to get my run in before Hayden woke up. And in my usual, like, uber safe wardrobe choice, I was in black t-shirt, black shorts, hat, no headlamp. And I was trying to see the sidewalks, but there was a street. There's like no headlamps, or excuse me, like no street lights. It was pitch black. I make the turnaround, coming back down, going down a hill, and I see this guy in the distance, like the silhouette, right? I can see him, but like he is also rocking the same wardrobe choice I am, all black. All I can see is the fact that he like just looked at his watch for his pace, and it lit up a little bit. And he comes screaming past me. And so he can't do the nod, right? Because you don't know. I'm just trying not to hit you head on and hoping that you just see me enjoy. This guy's at least 6'3", like he hit a wide frame. He flies by me. He goes, push it, baby. I was like, yes. You don't ever get that, right? Like, how great would it be to like hit up the Greenway, or your local route, and somebody's like comes running by you, going the other direction. It's like, get after it today. Nice work. How much greater would your run be? Like instead of like people like not looking at you or keeping their head down the whole time, earphones stuck in and acting like they're too good. They got to stay in their own zone. They can't acknowledge you. They can't even do like the small, like 2-3 finger wave. Yeah. It was like a nice little espresso shot on my run as I headed back to the house.
It sounds like, was that Wasky by chance?
It was not Wasky.
Inside joke of the day.
Yeah, it was not.
Yeah, no,
it was not Wasky.
That's good, man.
Oh, man.
Felt good.
Yeah, it was. And we'll be invading Madison, Wisconsin, starting next Friday. So we look forward to seeing everybody there. Another great race. hoping, that, eventually it'll be, a mass start again, but whatever. We'll be there. Looks like fantastic weather. Pumped to do it.
Oh yeah. Bring back your signs. Bring back the mass
It's right.
start.
Yeah. We have best signs. I want to
signs.
see best signs here, period. Best signs. A lot of them. Yeah. With some inside jokes would be great. Anything for Mike. Maybe, again, like if you want to throw like Usher cassettes at him, whatever gets him in the R&B mood, I think would be. I mean, if you can't find him, bring him to me. I won't be at my usual bus stop. It'll be at that corner. I'll have my C26 polo on. It's orange, blue, and something else color. But yeah, hand it to me. I'm happy to, maybe some like MC Hammer, some Usher, some Boys to Men. I might even put Old Mace in there. But yeah, I'm happy to Genuine, happy to deliver some of those goodies to Mike, especially as he's coming back to start lap 2, when he'll be easily in the best mood possible. I can hand him off then. Honestly, I know they say music's not allowed, but I could easily like pop in a cassette to a Sony Walkman and give you some headphones to rock in the last lap.
Yeah. I'm going to have mirrored sunglasses on. I probably won't even see you, man. I'm going to be
mirrored
locked
sunglasses. You doing like blue blockers?
I might. Whatever I can lock
legendary. Heck yeah, dude. Those would be legendary.
Google Glass, baby. I'm going to film it. Record the whole run.
Oh man. So yeah. So we were going to do, we'll do a Q&A next Tuesday. I plopped into like the Facebook group and asked, we haven't done a Q&A in forever. So I popped in and, sometimes do those when we get like 2 questions. But yeah, we've already got 7, but you and I had like a 30-minute combo before we went live, and that always kind of drives the choice we'll make with the discussion of the day. So we'll punt those. So keep them coming if you haven't seen it yet. And maybe this is why we should always kind of advertise that we're going to do a Q&A. So go and do our closed Facebook group, which is Crushing Iron Group on Facebook. Give that a search, and we'll do a Q&A next Tuesday. Before we head out to Madison. But today, like we were talking before, we started the show about coaching philosophy, and obviously like you and I have been doing this for such a long, period of time. And you and I get questions all the time, coaching philosophy. And a lot of times we talk, at length about a lot of it on, the podcast. And so it's readily available, but that one of the biggest traps, I think, especially newer coaches fall into, and any new coach, like even when you and I started, you don't have a lot to go on. Yes, you can go get a USAT certification or Ironman U certification or some of these other ridiculous certifications. You can pay, like a weekend of training doesn't make you a coach. It makes you a trainer. And I think there's a huge difference in being like a trainer, which is pretty much anybody that starts coaching, is you start to train people, but you don't have a lot of like anecdotal evidence to go off of. You just have what you can read, right? And listen, there's a lot of good out there that you can read, right? Like there's a lot of good information. There's a lot of good science. Like I remember when we first started doing this, and I was living in Kansas City, back in Overland Park. I was watching YouTube videos, making notes, starting like, a black book of like trying to learn and accumulate stuff. But I'll tell you, like the longer you do it, the more you go back on just like personal experience. You don't go off. I have 0 certifications. I have 0 triathlon coaching certifications, but still been, I would say pretty successful with our athletes. And you can also, like, I think, and you mentioned this too, is like with the amount of articles and access to research and blogs and papers and, interviews, like there's so, it's almost like, athletes come to coaches because there's so much information out there that to sift through, especially now. There's this way to train, there's this way to train, there's this way to train, there's this way to train. And they don't know, so they want a coach to tell them. But also I feel like now we're to a point to where some coaches need coaching on how to coach, because it's the same thing. like there's too much information. You can get too distracted. And I think, like, we mentioned this, probably a couple of years ago, is like, 75% of what, I think most coaches should do is, like based on research and evidence from, like, not recently, but from like the large sum of the last like 100 to 150 years, not the most recent. Because if you look at it in, like, if you take back what was new and earth shattering and earth and changing and training theory 50 years ago, it's now been debunked, right? Or it's changed. Like, there's always an ebb and flow with training. There's always an agenda, right? To do these research, these science side, because you want people to read it, because it is so polarizing and so different. So, like, anytime I read, that's why, like, honestly, like, I'm sure there's some validity to doing like a little bit higher carb. That's why I'm not like jumping on and, trying to cop a feel with companies like The Feed, like a lot of coaches and companies are, because, just because 120 grams of carbs is great right now, it doesn't mean in like 5 or 6 years they're going to be like, you know what, now we're doing 500 milligrams of protein. That's the new thing. It cycles through something different all the time. And so the best thing that you can do from a research, from a nutritional standpoint, is to just go, like we said before, like on your own anecdotal evidence of the hundreds of thousands of athletes that we've worked with over the last decade, and what we have, and also what we have experienced personally, right? Like, you and I have tried, a lot of, not weird shit, but, we've tried a lot of things on ourselves. We've worked with a ton of different athletes, seen a lot of success, seen some things that haven't worked, but you can't take one approach and apply it to all. It's not possible. And so I think, like, that's one of the things I think is actually getting harder and harder for coaches to do, is to go based on their own experience and, and what they've seen with athletes, and then what they've seen with themselves, and use that as their kind of like their foundation of their coaching approach, versus, well, Ironman, you told me this, or USAT told me this, or, you got sucked into the, ridiculously stupid Tri-Dot certification that Ironman you had, and now you're, doing this stuff, or not even like thinking. And it's all based on experience, and you can't get that experience. And that's like the hard thing about coaching, right? Is you start off being a trainer to get athletes, and once you get athletes, then you start to learn from them. Then you start to become, a coach. And I think there's a big difference between the two, but you have to like try some, trial and errors. You have to pick up athletes that you're like, maybe wouldn't see yourself working with, 10 years down the road, but you have to create your own sample group. You're an experimental group to figure out what works, because and you're the same way. Like, every athlete you work with makes you a better coach, makes you a better athlete, and also allows you to coach your other athletes better, because it's another input of a sample from somebody from, a different background, or a different work scenario, or a different age, or a different, training stimulus. Like, it's all about putting that stuff into your pocket. And if you train everyone the same way 24/7, like, you really don't know any of that. You're just, doing the same thing. So yeah, I think anecdotal evidence and your own personal experience should be much more of a driver than a weekend certification or a adopted training method that you just you'll die on the sword of, even though like deep down, like, maybe this wasn't the best idea, maybe I should change.
Yeah, there's a lot in there, man. I've talked about how I used to work in the news, and how I just absolutely despise the news now, because, we were really trained to, and I've just seen this happen, right? It's sort of like, I was a marketing director for a news station, and I was taught all these tricks for how to get people in to watch the newscast, and, sort of this, they call them teases or whatever, and just this whole marketing thing or whatever. And so I was, I was a marketing guy in a corporation. I was like one guy with maybe 3 people helping me or whatever. And then marketing became mainstream. Like, everybody's a marketer now, influencers, all these people. and they're basically using a lot of the same tricks. So one of the tricks was, you create, it's a headline business, and obviously we talk about clicks, and everybody wants clicks now. So it's always this, salacious headline that kind of gets you in, should you stop eating carbs as an Ironman, whatever. And then that's the thing. And then like people read, the first paragraph or whatever, and then by the end it'll say something like, well, there's really no conclusive evidence, and we think the best thing is to have carbs or whatever. But that's kind of the baseline of how I think most information is laid out these days. They kind of like create this whole thing and then really don't answer the question. But so you gotta be really careful. And I was just thinking about that, like how many inputs we have in this world now, whether it's, email, text alerts, videos, this and that, everything, podcasts, so much information coming in. And like, you make a good point about how do coaches like start trimming the fat on all this information too? Because I mean, I've talked about, meditation in the past, but the reason I even think about and like stuff like that is just because it calms things down, and it really kind of gets me back to my gut and instinctual based on experience and things like that. And I like I'm interested in a lot of people, like a guy like Goggins, who I'm crazy about that guy. And he just makes me laugh, and there's just like a lot of enjoyment in watching him. But I take that shit with a grain of salt. Like a lot of that stuff doesn't apply to me, but maybe part of it does. And I think that those are the interesting dissertions that we make, is like take stuff from here, stuff from there. Sometimes, like I was talking last time about how I like to, if I'm going to have a swim the next day, sometimes I'll watch a couple of YouTube videos just on swim. And I don't like try to change my whole philosophy. I'm just looking for something that clicks, right? That makes sense with what I've been doing. And sometimes it's just like goofy dudes that have no real, they're just talking stupid shit, and I'll find some good stuff in there. And that becomes sort of like, we are what we're exposed to, and then we are what we filter out too. So, yeah, I mean, I always learn from my athletes, and for me, it's a two-way street on that kind of stuff. It's sort of like, what works for you, or what do you think is going to work? And, like if you believe in something too, I'm a big believer in having, sort of faith in what you're doing, and how you can kind of convince yourself that something's right too. There's this, like, I talk about just quick, like like for example, one of my things is like, people all, really have a, nutrition is like the stepchild, the dark-headed stepchild or whatever of the race. A lot of times, I blew my nutrition. I was like, well, maybe you just weren't that good a shape, So it's like, I think we got to kind of keep that thing. I think that your nutrition isn't hugely important. Don't get me wrong, but to sort of bank on filling yourself up with carbs to get through a race where you're not even really needing a ton of carbs. Sometimes, like at the end of an Ironman race, you're just kind of going so slow that you know what I mean. So it's like, I just think that there's a lot of sort of top line things that really need to be revisited sometimes.
I loved all that. And I mean, like, it's funny because I had this exact conversation last night with an athlete, and about how, like, you can't, sometimes we just adopt things to adopt things. And because that's out there. And I mean, a lot of it's just laziness, right? Like, everyone's doing this, I better do it too. Example, and I love what you said about, like the nutrition and the run are the two most common excuses you hear post-race. Mm-hmm. I got to run more. I've never heard a person cross the finish line and been like, man, yeah, I fell apart. I really got to swim more. It's really effective. No, it's like, I got to run more. I got to do track workouts. I got to do more long runs. Definitely got to do more bricks, it's proven. It's not science. It's just proven statistically that more people DNF or race or underperform because of nutrition. But like you said, I think half of it is nutrition related. Half of it is poor pacing and poor preparation. Yeah. Right. The same, because to me, it's the same thing as cramping. Like, no offense, but like, your banana isn't taking away your cramps.
Yeah.
The pickle juice, like, it's not taking away your cramps. Like, if you think that, and again, like, that's why the mind's a powerful thing. Like, it's the vinegar. Like, it just, and it, like, you're cramping because you're overdoing it. You're cramping because you're overdoing it. And like, that's why nutrition on a 70.3 and a full are so different. At a 7.3, you should be able to swim, bike, and run at a higher pace. You should be able to bike and run and swim at a higher pace. And if you're doing that, then you can't take in as many calories as you could on an Ironman, whatever scale it is, whether it's going from 50 to 30 or 150 to 100, or vice versa. At the higher rate of speed, you cannot, your body can't digest that quickly. Right. And you can say, oh, I've trained my gut and I've trained. Well, first of all, it sounds terrible, but like I've trained it. Yeah. But you also probably did it inside perfectly paced, going easy. And you didn't probably go zone 3 for an hour and 25 minutes to swim before you started. Like, that's a huge thing, man. I would argue 90% of people should probably do more long, hard swims before they do a bike ride to figure out the nutrition than vice versa. So, go to the start of it. Don't go to the end of it. But if you find something that doesn't work, be willing to like change it, because some people should, like, some people got to be taken in. I mean, because as a coach, you have the exact opposite conversation almost daily. Was it Monday? God, today feels like a Thursday for some reason, but yesterday I read a race recap from somebody who has chronically underperformed in the majority of their 7.3s. And finally, we were able, I think, to kind of figure out why. He would have, solid swimming, great in training, solid swim, pretty good bike ride, towards the end of the bike, and there were just massive GI issues. So it could be, overdoing it. It could be, GI distress, like actual real GI distress, or a combination of both, right? Overdoing it and taking in, probably to shove in too much. Because it also jacks up your heart rate and exertion, right? You're trying to go fast and you're trying to, consume, X, Y, and Z. And so he's like, I've been taking in this. And I'm like, dude, I think you're taking in way, way too much right now. So on the next race, right, where you're doing a sprint, you can also, mess up and do whatever, but you can also, like, you're going to be going really, really, really fast. So he went down to like the bare minimum. He said he took like 3 sips of Tailwind and 2 sips of clear water the whole bike, and then just water and then run. And had the best sprint he's had in years. Compared to like downing, like 18 scoops of Tailwind, which is what he was doing before. And then, so I read that early in the morning, and then an hour and a half later, I have a call with an athlete talking about he's not feeling enough. Right. So you have to, everything has to be able to change, and you have to be able to look at things objectively. Like, what problem is there that we have to solve? And a lot of times, like, again, like the most common, the scapegoats are always fuel, my GI, my fueling and my nutrition and my running. That's always it. It's like, it's not always, but those are like the 2 most common scapegoats. A lot of times it's, you didn't train well enough. Like I've got lower back discomfort on the bike, or my neck hurts, this is one of the first things I remember, like, talking to Schwan about after Wisconsin. He's like, my neck was hurting really bad after this. Like, like I get my new bike position. I'm like, dude, like, how many times do you swim in your wetsuit and practice sighting? Mm-hmm. We sometimes and this is athletes, right? Like, they just don't think beyond the most read about scapegoats. My lower back's hurting, I got to this. Well, yeah, but if you haven't swum in your wetsuit, like the natural, especially if you have poor body position. Okay, so hear me out. If you have naturally poor body position, which a lot of triathletes do, and you get to have a swim that's wetsuit legal, those legs are going to prop up, and you probably have, because you obviously don't have a very strong core, because if you did, you wouldn't have that poor body position. But you go into a race with probably not as strong lower back and core, and then your legs are now elevated up. You probably got like a droop in your stomach, and your lower back is probably like caved in. You do that for an hour and 25 minutes while you swim, and you lift your head up to sight. Ever thought about the fact that it might not be your bike fit?
Yeah,
That it
exactly.
might just be it might just be the fact that your core is weak and that you don't know what it's like to swim in a wetsuit, right? That's why I love like putting athletes in a pool buoy, because that simulates what they're going to have on race day regardless, right? Of wetsuit. And then you do stuff that with no pool buoy, so they can still be strong, have have good body position without it. Like, it's not like do your due diligence and work your way past like the most common issues that you think, oh, it's got to be nutrition. Because that's just easy, right? And if you don't know, then you don't know. But be willing to kind of like, and that's why I have a really, really hard time with, and that's why I love the fact that we don't have any sponsors. Like, we can say whatever we want to say, but like anyone that gives you advice on going one way or the other and has a product to sell, like, I'm always kind of weird. And that's the same thing as like research papers in science. Like you said, like, it's like religion, politics, and like right next door is like what you eat, like your diet. It's like, it's like that's now like the things you don't talk about at the table, it's just so heavy. And like anytime you look at one of those, you got to ask yourself, like what do I really believe and why do I believe? But also the biggest thing that I love that you said was about the belief. If an athlete believes what they're doing is right, then they're more likely to be consistent when they do it, and they're more likely to trust it. And if they're going to be more consistent and they're going to trust at the same time, then you're going to get a better result. Right? So some of that is like, your belief system carries you a long way. If you don't believe it, you're not going to do as well. You're going to be looking for reasons for it not to go okay. You're going to be looking for reasons for it to not go well, right? And that's like the same approach that people take to racing is why they end up not racing well. If you believe in it and you have like a deep conviction, right? And I think athletes should have this, and the coaches have to have these deep convictions about certain things, but also be insanely wide open to others. Because if you go down that rabbit hole of just being deeply convicted in every way, then you're never going to be open to change. And there's been plenty of things I've changed and come around on in the last decade. Hell, I gave people track workouts this year, like in some, not all, in heavier speed work and different. And like, there's just, you can have principles, but you can also have like variations of those principles that are applicable and appropriate for a certain person and a certain time frame for a certain race. But if you aren't willing to kind of like take your blinders off and kind of look through things, but again, like you said, like if an athlete really, really believes this is the way, then you have to do your best to kind of, educate them as fully as you can. And then almost kind of embrace the way that they love, because if they believe it, then, you're going to have a really hard time convincing them otherwise, unless it's, evidence-based and you're like, oh, well, see, this did work out it's the exact same thing. And like, I guess a different scale of every athlete you work with the first time. It's like, I've got to run 20. Why am I not doing 20+ mile runs, for the Ironman? And they're so nervous. They don't believe it and they don't trust the system until they do one. And then they're like, okay, I get it. I was running past all my buddies that were doing like 5 20-mile runs and 14-mile breaks. Now I believe, now I believe. You have to do it, but you got to keep your mind open. You got to kind of see and listen to what an athlete believes, as long as it's, as long as you know, right, like deep down that it's not going to really hurt or prevent them. You can just educate them based on your experience with no bias, right? And that, to me, like that's a huge thing you have to look at when you start to consume like 90 billion, podcasts that all have an agenda, or they're all sponsored by the feed. And like, yeah, they're telling you to eat this shit and to drink it because they get a cut from it. And so if you can't tell me there aren't blurred lines when it comes to that. And also, it also means that there's probably zero chance that they're ever going to look at there being any other possible solution for any one person, because they got to die on that same hill. And so I think it's just, there's way too much of that going on. And I think that as coaches and athletes, you have to be very, very careful of that.
Yeah, man. Well, a couple of things, you're talking about citing and the whole thing with the I think it's interesting because I do swim lake here, a lot, and sighting, man, if you're not comfortable with it, it's something that that can really kind of wear you out. It's like, especially if you're not doing it right, and you're stressed out every time, and you get in the water, and there's not only sighting for your lines, but for other people, and just keeping aware of that. And it's really interesting to think about that. And you also brought up cramps, and this is one thing that I learned. I think it was a couple of years ago I was out riding the Madison Loop, and we decided to take a detour off and go up Barlow. And you remember Barlow, and it's a very steep ending to that.
Yeah, I know.
But
we rode it in that van. I remember thinking, shit, this is gonna suck.
Well, actually, we didn't think it was that bad in the van, and then we just got out on the course, and after the race,
right.
we got to each other.
We're like, oh, this isn't that bad. We're trying to talk ourselves out of being intimidated by it.
That was legit. But the thing of it is I wasn't in that great a riding shape yet, but we went over and did it, and I remember just how hard I had to work just to get up that thing. And the thing I noticed more than anything when I got to the top was my stomach was jacked up. It was almost like it excreted some kind of something and I think that's the one thing that I've kind of tried to keep in mind is like, of course, like Wisconsin, where there's so many hills, and if you kind of go over your skis, maybe for a couple, 2 or 3 in a row, that stuff can start eating up. And I think that GI distress for the run actually starts there. And I kind of had that last year for the first time, and probably because I was out of shape. And then secondly, it was weird because, you think about nutrition. I swear to God, I think I only had like water and maybe some Coke on that run. And the way I was running, a couple Portalet stops or whatever, but that was enough fuel for me. I actually started to feel good towards the end, and I wasn't running fast by any means, but you know what I'm saying? It's sort of like that pace didn't demand really a ton of fuel. But yeah, then I just always, question my toughness at that point, to be honest, because it's like, yeah, a gut in my stomach was kind of giving me that business or whatever. And I was just like, man, it's just so easy to flip that switch to an excuse right there. And I work on that stuff, man. I mean, because to me, it's like, that run, there's a gazillion excuses just hanging right over your head, and I don't know. I'm not saying that doesn't get to a point for people sometimes, but for me, I sort of question that. So anyway, I'll come back, and I've got a thought on tapers. Why don't you go ahead with that one?
Yeah, no, man, he said something. I actually thought of this the other day, but I think our excuse level and our ability to bow out has increased in the last decade because of the amount of information. Oh. Because we can frame it. It's not an excuse. That's just, there's a different answer because of what I read. But I will say, like, I don't know that I've ever had an athlete come back from a super easy, relaxed, like zone 1, zone 2 run with like stomach issues. Like, I'm sure there are, but like if you're going like super chill, it's like almost impossible. But if you go out and run hard, you come back and like, ooh, my stomach isn't, like, that's your digestive system being like, what the fuck did we just do? And why'd you shove all that in me? But yeah, I mean, I'm sure there have been, right? There's lots of issues, but I mean, my first thing when people are like, hey, yeah, they just got GI issues. I'm like, well, first 2 things, how hot was it? Right, which also causes, digestive discomfort. Your core temp's heating up. It's harder to digest anything because your body is using energy to try to cool itself. And then, how hard did you go? That's why the almost, I would say, if on a weekly basis from fall, winter to spring, summer, 80%, if not more, of reported GI discomfort with the athletes I work with comes in the early summer, mid to late summer, almost 0 in the winter. And I think a lot of that has, this is, again, my anecdotal, like experience is you're trying to take in too many calories and it's too hot. So you got 2 things working against your ability to really perform, because one, your body has to use energy to digest, right? And it's using energy to keep yourself cool. And you're asking it to do 3 things it's not capable of really doing at the level you're asking you to do at the same time. So a lot of times I'm like, how hard are you? Like, oh, maybe I'm like, that's, go take your own easier, or don't take anything. Um, sometimes you got to have it, but like just play with it. And then, but yeah, going back to the excuses part, and then you can go to your thought about the taper. But I think a lot of times, like, there's so much information out there that people, oh, I've got to be this, or I've got to do that. I did read this. And I'm like, well, a lot of times, like, just figure it out. Like I was thinking about this on Sunday, and yes, like, he's a different age, but like, Hayden got up early. We biked to the grocery store, and he got breakfast. We biked back. Then he played with his buddy, and then they biked some more. And then he went and skated for 2.5, 3 hours. And then he went and played more in the afternoon and rode bikes again. And at not one point I was like, I wonder if he needs a gel.
Yeah, right.
I wonder if he needs some carbs, right? And they're fucking hammering it. I mean, full speed, full gas going, you don't ever, right? Or if someone was like, we talked about this before, it's like someone's left and you're like, I'm just like, I'm 15, 20 miles away from home and I've got an easy run. Or like, you wouldn't be like, I can't make it. I don't have my Morton gel. I can't make it. I'm not gonna bonk.
Yeah.
No, you would pace yourself and you would be 100% totally fine. 100. I didn't do that, but like when I was after I graduated high school, I was walking on trying to get a scholarship for the tennis team, and I would just run from like my house in River Oaks up to like Time Boulevard, and with nothing. Dead in the middle of, summertime, no nothing. Yes, you're a different age, but still it's the same body. It's just a little bit younger. And then like that same summer, we were heading down to Destin with a buddy of mine. We ran out of gas on the interstate, and I had to, this is like the worst paper, rock, scissors loss in my life. We did paper, rock, scissors to see who had to go find gas. I lost. It's the last time I'll ever go scissors, but I lost. And so I had to run. This is like interstate, South Alabama, 100-something degrees. And I wasn't like, I can't do it, man. I don't have a Camelback or a handheld. Or I need,
Yeah.
you got any sports beans with you? Like, I can't make it. No, I just, took my shirt off and ran down the interstate for 10 miles. Because we had just passed, like we were like, we can get the next one when we get off in Montgomery. No, not so much. And we didn't know how, it was before GPS. We had no idea how much further the one ahead of us was. Because we didn't have, you hadn't the cell phones or anything like that. I mean, as luck would have it, there was one like a mile up the road, but whatever. But all we knew, there was one 10 miles back. And yeah, but it's like, so like I think about that stuff all the time when we're training, because we've adopted such a mindset because of the information that we have to have these things because they're advertised, right? You got to have power, you got to have pace, you got to have, even heart rate, you got to have this, you got to have that, you've got to have all these things because that's what the information that we read on purpose is telling us, right? And the same thing with nutrition, the same thing with training, like this is how much people are training to be successful. Like, that's because that allowed them to be successful. Doesn't mean it's anywhere close to what's going to allow you to be successful. And so I think that's like, that increases our level of excuse, but also at the same time, like, has decreased our ability to really objectively research our own self and what works best for us, and do trial and error and be able to go against the grain, not just, pull up Facebook and click the first thing that comes on, or do what, Christian Blumenfeld does, or do what Lucy Charles Barkley does. Like, it's all the same, right? They still get paid money to tell you what they drink. And half the time I'm like, I bet you they don't even drink that. It's like they get paid anytime, but that's how people adopt it. Like, we become void of the ability to think for ourselves and like go with our gut on what really, really feels like, and then document it, because we can just open up our phone when you open up your eyes at 5:15 in the morning and open up social media and see 16 ads about the next nutrition thing you should take, or what, this triathlete is using, you're like, that's it. That's what I got to take. You just got marketed. Like you're another customer. You're not, and you should be your most important customer, right? That you're doing your due diligence on. And I think it's just become a lost art, because there is so much information out there.
Yeah, and I can take Hayden's story and apply it to me, which is a 61-year-old. And a lot of times, like if we have a camp like at Madison or at Nashville or whatever, and we'll split up in ways to kind of hang with groups and stuff. And a lot of times I'll just kind of hang back and go with the group that's in the back. And a lot of times I literally just put like a scoop of scratch in there, and that's it. Have one bottle for a loop, and I'll just kind of cruise, and I feel fine. Because it's literally an endurance ride, but then, we go out and we'll ride hard and maybe double it up or something like that. And then be just completely shellacked after, doing a couple loops or something. I'll be like, dizzy and the whole 9 yards. Well, I under fueled that, but I definitely keep in mind, just those easy, endurance rides or runs or something like that. I'm always just sort of not really fueling a lot. But the point is I'm going slow enough, that zone 1, zone 2 stuff where I'm teaching my body, I think, to burn fat. I mean, at least that's what I think. And that's what it seems like. I mean, it feels like I could just keep going all day without really fueling up, but some days I'll get out and, like I said, I'll ride and just absolutely be shellacked. And I'm sure it's because I didn't put enough fuel in me. So, that's just something that is obvious, but, it just kind of perplexed me for a long time. I just it didn't make sense. It didn't seem like I was going that much harder, you know what I mean? Or whatever. But you are. And, who knows what you ate before, the night before, and whatever. There's a lot of variables, but I just think it's interesting. So I try to, take the Hayden approach a lot, where I'm not just always trying to fuel everywhere I go and everything I do. And I'm just like, your body can kind of handle the low impact. I was just wanted to mention about taper, because I'm in taper, and I'm, I think a lot of people have questions about, because we always talk about, you're supposed to recover, but also stay sharp and everything like that. And, like for me, the last couple of weeks, trying to put in some big volume before the race, I've been, every other day or something, I'm just kind of like wasted, tired. And so I'm really looking at this as like I'm weighting recovery a lot more than being sharp, or I shouldn't say that, but you know what I mean? I'm not like, I'm not obsessed with like trying to get any more fitness in. But I'm just, it's my old adage is like the goal for me every time I race is to feel the best I've felt all day or all year on race day. So whatever that takes. Right. And, it's kind of one of those things where, I want to stay sharp, but I feel like, a guy like me that really didn't come from endurance, I usually don't have trouble kind of turning up the cadence, just metaphorically. But I have trouble with the long stuff. So I just really want to be deep and rested, and I've got like, I was talking to a guy, one of my athletes, and he's really an active guy. Like, he gets bored and he'll go out for a 4-mile trail run or something because his legs are, bored. And, but he's been doing it, forever. That's what he does. And the other day we had a swim yesterday. And then he goes, and he ended up getting on the trainer for like an hour at night. He goes, yeah, I was just sitting around and my legs just feel like they needed to move. Perfect. He can handle that, but if you haven't been doing that and you're trying to sneak in a little extra, fitness at this time, it's probably not the best idea. Like we always talked about, if you're way undertrained, might as well save it for the race and just put in a ball buster of a day out there rather than trying to get fit in the last week and a half.
Yeah. I mean, I love that, because honestly, and we can wrap it up here. And I did say earlier that we would do the Q&A next week, but I keep forgetting it's not Thursday, it's Tuesday. So we'll do it Thursday. But I mean, like if you're tapering or about to go into a taper, like the last day of your block, you shouldn't try to gain any fitness. The point now through taper is to peak with the fitness that you already have, not to gain fitness. You will gain it by reducing fatigue. And I think that's, so if you look at, if you look at a seesaw, right, and you've got on the left side is fatigue and the right side is fitness, and you've been building, this seesaw, and the fatigue has been going up and up and up and up. And you feel like, right, the fitness has been going down and down and down. It hasn't. The fatigue is just masking it. There's too much fatigue. And then you start to slowly, so now your build is done. Well, now the point of taper is to slowly get that seesaw to go the other way. Fatigue is lower and lower and lower. As fatigue goes lower, guess what? Fitness gets higher and higher and higher. You're not gaining fitness. You're just showing the fitness that you gained. And so if you're going into like your taper and you're that seesaw, right, where the fatigue is super high and you feel like your fitness is low, don't chase that, because what's going to happen is you're actually going to continue to prevent, right, and you're going to elongate the period of time that the fatigue level of the seesaw is going to stay high, because you're chasing fitness that's already there. You're not doing what you need to do, which is slowly, again, you don't need it to go like, drop an anvil on the fatigue side so your fitness goes way up in like 2 seconds. Like, don't be that. It should be slowly done. And that's the kind of mentality and the visual you need over the next week or the 10 days or whatever it is for your race. The point is not to gain fitness. The point is to peak with the fitness that you have. And if that means Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday of this week, like let's say you're doing Wisconsin, you're taking it easy, you're listening to your body, you're maybe cutting, some volume short, but keeping the intensity. Maybe you sleep in one day, but then, Friday, Saturday, when you got some stuff, you're like, man, I think I might, I think my fitness part might be getting too high too soon. Then maybe go a little bit harder. Right. And you'll know that because you'll start to see signs, right? You start to maybe sleep a little bit better. You might feel more crisp, right? And also don't be fooled because the weather all of a sudden changed, right? Like that's going to take some getting used to. And so like that, picture that, right? And work with that. And that's honestly like a day-to-day thing that you have to own as the athlete. And the coach will ask you how you're feeling or what needs to be done, or maybe we go harder, maybe we go easy, maybe take a day off. But remember, the goal is to peak with the fitness that you earned and you have, right? It's not to go out and try to gain, because what you're actually going to do is to create more of an imbalance and make the transition to, realizing and showing your peak fitness that much more difficult.
Yeah, I love that.
That's all I got today. That's
it, huh? Yeah, I think it's probably, I don't know. I'm trying to read the sign. I was hanging blinds this morning.
You were hanging blinds? How are the shoulders? How are the delts? Usually those are the first things to go, and hanging blinds, right, are the delts.
Yeah, no, they're fine. I mean, just the outside, like patio things. It wasn't anything too fancy. But, it's just when I start doing shit like that or organizing my sock drawer and everything like that, I know that I'm starting to get my...
Wait,
I'm starting to get the energy back. You know what I mean?
Like, how many pairs of socks you got?
Well, not too many, to be honest.
It
didn't take that long. I still,
like if you're organizing a sock drawer, that is.
Well, there's underwear in there too, and then.
Oh, okay, thank you. All right, then that makes more sense. I'm the same. Yeah, I got socks and underwear in the same drawer. Definitely not organized, but yeah, I mean, why put them in a different drawer? I mean,
yeah, exactly. I'm just saying, once when you start recognizing yourself doing that kind of shit, you know that you're starting to recover a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, to your point, it's also like, how many times do you get the itch to go cut your grass? That's really also a great sign of a good homeowner. But also,
that's all that's like the only
but also,
thing I get the itch
we
for.
we had Hayden had some friends over Friday night after school, and when we decided to do that, I was like, I'm gonna go cut the grass. She was like, you cut it 4 days ago. I was like, I know, but you got company coming over. She's like, it's not about the company, is it? And I was like, no, it's about the yard. It's about me. It's just an excuse to go out there and nail a good yard cut. But I mean, listen, it puts you in a good spot. Unless you're going to cut it and let me do this. Here's a great question. We can end on this. This is a very important question that really kind of tells you what kind of person it is. It takes you 30 minutes to cut your yard the way you like to cut it. And it takes you 10 minutes to edge the way you like to edge. And it takes you 5 minutes to blow. You only have 35 minutes before a company comes over. So you can't do it all. It's going to be halfway done. What do?
I mow the yard.
I mow the yard.
I mean, I can't rush that either because I grew up in the school where it says if you're pushing your lawnmower too fast, it's not doing the right job.
It's not doing that. Yeah, exactly.
So I'm looking out here now going, I cut it the other day, but I'm also trying, like in the fall, I leave it a little longer in the summer with the sun. I don't know if that's good or not, but in the fall, I slowly kind of lower the bed of the mower to get it down tight. So I could probably almost get a 1/4 inch off of that today if I went out there. And don't cut too much of the blade.
Yeah, exactly.
I was over at the hardware store the other day. I was talking to the guy who sharpens lawnmower blades for about 25 minutes about his technique, and because I had a chip in there, and I go, can you save this? He goes, oh, you won't believe the things I've saved. Really? Yeah. So that's what I do.
Interesting. Okay, I can go with that.
You got to sharpen the blade. But what would you do? You'd trim?
So this may be controversial. We may lose listeners. I trim before I mow.
Yeah, I'm in on that sometimes.
Yeah, I trim before I mow. I think it makes mowing go quicker and easier. I can round off the corners. I go ahead and trim, the sidewalks and the curb, and the beds, and I think it makes for a more pleasant. You're doing less turns. So I would do a trim, and then I would go for the mow. And if I didn't finish in time, I would finish. And I would just say, sorry, I had to finish cutting my grass.
So you'd wave at the guests while you're mowing the lawn is what you would do.
Exactly. Like, I'm doing this for you. I mean, not really, but I kind of am. So, yeah, I don't know what to do here. But yeah, some people just say, I'll put it off for the next day, but I don't know that I can handle that.
You wouldn't leave like the side unmowed where nobody could see? I might think that one through a little bit. In
the triage of what to do, for me, it's like I cut the front and then I go straight to the back and the back. And if the sides got to wait, you wait for the sides. But that's why I also trim, because then if you cut the front, you haven't trimmed, then you're screwed. At least it looks like a finished product when you're done mowing because you've already trimmed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that's fair. This is all making me really want to get a haircut right now. I think I'm close enough to the race where it'd still be shining.
Yeah, no, there's always time for a good grass cut. I'm gonna go cut mine too. It feels nice outside. And you know what? For the rest of you, if you're tapering, show some love. Go cut your grass. As always, we love you guys. We appreciate you. Go to our website, c26triathlon.com. It is our one-stop shop for all things coaching, camps, and community. You need anything from Mike, he's available. Mike at c26triathlon.com. Or if you need anything from me specifically, Robbie at c26triathlon.com.
All right, man. Happy mowing.
Happy mowing, dude. See you Thursday.
All right, see you.